In today's episode, we bring you the concluding part of the review of the Book of Esther. Welcome to our channel. Please sit back and watch the final part of the story. If you have not watched the first two parts, please click on the playlist link showing on the screen and in the notes section below. Happy viewing. The same day Haman was hanged, the king gave Queen Esther Haman's estate.
Wow. Talk about wealth transfer.
Esther appointed Mordecai to oversee Haman's estate for her. She also presented Mordecai to the king and introduced him as her relative. Then the king gave his signet ring that he had retrieved from Haman to Mordecai.
So, exactly what Haman planned against the Jews happened to him. And the honor bestowed upon him was given to Mordecai.
That's why we must always take heed of what we do too, or wish for somebody else.
How about the decree against the Jews? Did Esther get the king to reverse it? My king.
Why do you cry, my queen? What is it? I have dealt with your adversary. I've given Haman's estate to you, and he's been hanged on the gallows because he attacked the Jews. What else do you want?
If it please the king and he regards me with favor, and thinks this is right, and if he has any affection for me at all, let an order be written, that cancels the plan of Haman to annihilate the Jews in all the king's provinces. How can I stand to see this catastrophe wipe out my people? How can I bear to stand by and watch the massacre of my own relatives?
You and Mordecai, go ahead and write whatever you decide, then seal it with a signet ring. An order written in the king's name, and sealed with his signet ring is irrevocable.
So, all the king's secretaries were brought in on the 23rd day of the third month, the month of Sivan. The orders were written as Mordecai dictated it, and under the name of King Xerxes. It was addressed to the governors of every province. The king's order authorized the Jews in every city to arm and defend themselves, killing anyone who threatened them, or their women and children, and confiscating for themselves anything owned by their enemies. They were translated into the different languages of all the peoples of the various provinces, including the Jews, sealed with the royal signet ring, and dispatched by couriers on horseback. The order was posted in public places in each province, so everyone could read it.
The Jews must have been relieved to hear this news.
In every province, in every city, when the king's bulletin was posted, the Jews took to the streets in celebration, cheering, and feasting. Mordecai walked out of the king's presence wearing a royal robe of violet and white, a huge gold crown, and a purple cape of fine linen. The city of Susa exploded with joy. The Jews celebrated. They had been honored. It was that way all over the country. Many non-Jews became Jews. Now it was dangerous not to be a Jew.
Who wouldn't become a Jew after witnessing the way God delivered them and turned the tables on their enemies?
You got that right, my dear.
Jew!
Bless you, Grandma.
Thanks, Ophelia. Where was I? Okay. On the set day that Haman had planned for the destruction of the Jews to take place, the king's order came into effect. The Jews had gathered in the cities throughout King Xerxes' provinces to lay hands on those who were seeking their ruin. Not one man was able to stand up against them. In addition, all the government officials and everyone who worked for the king helped the Jews because they were afraid of Mordecai. Mordecai by now was a power to reckon with in the palace, and his reputation had grown in all the provinces. So the Jews finished off all their enemies with the sword, slaughtering them right and left, and did as they pleased to those who hated them. But they took no plunder. That day, when it was all over. Do you have the information I asked for? Yes, sir. How many casualties? Master, there are too numerous to mention. We suspect tens of thousands throughout the provinces. We don't have the total numbers yet. Even the palace was not spared. 500 men were killed here today. My lord, the Jews have prevailed over all their enemies. Here in the palace complex alone, they have massacred 500 men. They also killed all Haman's sons.
I can only imagine what happened throughout the provinces. Queen Esther.
My lord.
In the palace complex alone here in Susa, the Jews have killed 500 men, plus all Haman's 10 sons. Think of the killing that must have been done in the rest of the provinces. What else do you want? Name it and it's yours. Your wish is my command.
If it please the king, give the Jews of Susa permission to extend the terms of the order another day, and have the bodies of all Haman's sons hanged in public display on the gallows.
It is done.
The order was extended. The bodies of Haman's 10 sons were publicly hanged. The next day, being the 14th day of the month of Adar, they killed another 300 men in Susa. But again they took no plunder. Meanwhile, in the rest of the king's provinces, on the day before, being the 13th, they killed 75,000 of those who hated them, and on the 14th, they took it easy and celebrated with much food and laughter. They made the 15th day their holiday for laughing and feasting. Mordecai recorded this, and sent copies to all the Jews in all the provinces, instituting an annual celebration on the 14th and 15th days of Adar, as the time when Jews got relief from their enemies, and the Jews agreed. What started then became a tradition, continuing the practice of what Mordecai had written to them. This is why Jews living out in the country and the rural villages remember the 14th day of Adar for celebration, their day for parties and the exchange of gifts.
Long may you reign, my king. Mordecai,
Your Majesty.
I have clothed you in royal apparel and bestowed upon you the honor of your adversary Haman.
Yes, Your Majesty, and I am filled with gratitude. I will be loyal and serve you diligently.
Today also, I have promoted you. You shall be second in command to me alone.
As your lordship pleases. Mordecai was very brilliant, popular among the Jews, and greatly respected by them. He worked hard for the good of his people. He cared for the peace and prosperity of his race. King Xerxes continued to rule his people after that.
Wow. What a great story, Grandma. Thank you so much. I now see why you said at the beginning that Vashti had to go. It was because God knew of Haman's plan to destroy the Jews, and Esther had to be queen to be able to intervene.
Yes. Remember, at the very beginning of creation, God placed the curse on the serpent at the Garden of Eden for causing the fall of man. He said that the seed of the woman would bruise the serpent's head. Since then, the devil tried everything in an attempt to stop the birth of the Messiah. The Jews had to be preserved from Haman's planned genocide so that the scriptures would be fulfilled and the Savior could be born. This is why Vashti had to go.
Wow. God does know the end from the beginning, and rules in the affairs of men.
We hope you learned a lot over the last 3 parts of this story. We see from this story that God will always honor, defend and protect his own. We also see the place of obedience, prayer and fasting in bringing God's will to pass. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and click on the notification bell. See you some other time.